So today's webinar, as promised, is a overview of luminosity masking and how it helps my process and the workflow that I use. So today we're going to be using Tony Kuiper's the TK8 luminosity masking. We're going to be using a little bit of Joel Tinger's version, which he typically uses for black and white, but we'll use it for a little bit of black and white and color. And we're going to be using a little bit of Photoshop to enhance the image. So what are luminosity masks? Well, they're basically another way of creating selections that, they guide and constrain the adjustments you want to make to your image. We will be using every type of adjustment layer that can be done with Photoshop with the selection mask that we're going to use. But today we're going to start with baby steps, and we'll be using mostly just dodge and burn and some adjustments to contrast to make some serious selections and masks and adjustments to your layer. So if you're already familiar with masks, they're just another way. Masks typically are black or white, and then they'll have portions of it in hard black and with a little bit of a soft edge or a little bit of a hard edge. This is very different in that they're made from the actual image itself, so more shades of gray than anything else. So to give you an example here, if we look at the gradient map of brightness values from 0 to 256, we can see where each luminosity mask type that we're going to be using is targeted. So we go from lights on the light side to lights 1 to light 6, and on the dark side, darks 1 to dark 6, which is very constrained. And we have 3 midtone masks, midtones 1, 2, and 3. So it's a tonal base versus a pixel base editing. Tonal base versus pixel means that we're going to make self-feathering masks, and we'll make them from color masks that we can generate in the dimensions of all of the 3D color model, and they're all created from the luminance or brightness values of each image. Now we can make selections based on brightness values, or we can make selections based on color to make our mask. Now this is what the luminosity panel looks like. We've got the TK8 multi-mask on the left, the TK8 combo, and the TK8 CX panel. Now I typically will use just the multi-mask and the TK8 combo on my workflow. The TK8 CX is basically identical to the combo, and just the way I've set my screen up. So it's identical. You can set it up with either one. So we've got Artisan Pro here, which is from Joel, and his was designed with black and white in mind. I mean, Joel is a master photographer and post-processor with black and white, but he has his look that's very well defined, and it's very fine art. All of the people that follow Joel and follow his methodology, typically all of their photos look exactly like Joel's, and not what I wanted to do with my work. I wanted to take pieces of each of these products and make it my own look. So we will use some pieces of the TK8, some pieces of Artisan Pro, and some pieces of Topaz to achieve a look that I think is mine and my unique look, and it's my workflow. But you can make your adjustments the same type of way to make your look. What's important here with luminosity masking is that you set up your preferences in Photoshop so that you're using ProPhoto RGB to get the most and the largest color space, and then you set your gray gamma to 1.8 so that you get to use the full scope of that color model. I always use the dodge and burn layer with the 50% gray, just so that I can see where I've worked. There's always 2 methods. You can do it with the clear layer or the gray filled layer, but the blend mode here is soft light for the burn layer, and the blend mode is overlay for the dodge layer, so that the image comes through and you can actually see where you've worked on the image. So there are no mistakes. Did I not work in that particular area? So it makes it much easier for you to review what you've done. Now what I've done here is created a series of masks with the lights from an image that we'll be working with today. So as you can see, from lights 1 to 6, we're revealing less and less of the light. The brightest of the bright lights is in light 6, and a normal zone 5, if you will, is lights 1. But as you see, going through lights 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we're seeing less light of the image that's in front of you, so that you can isolate that particular area of your image, and it is your image. It's just a mask that's made from there. So if we needed to dodge or burn anything that's within the scope of, say, lights 3, just that would be affected. So this is my typical workflow. Back up one. Went a little bit too fast, too far. And we work with this. I work with this workflow in that I'm using my basic raw adjustments in Lightroom or Adobe Raw. They're the same. I make very, very, very minor changes here. I'll hit auto, I'll put the camera profile in, I'll adjust the shadows as required and set the white and the black clipping points, and do any kind of image cleanup, leveling and cropping as desired before we start into Photoshop. So once I'm done with my basic edits in Lightroom, I'm going to bring it into Photoshop. I want to bring it in there with as much tonal range as possible. So within Photoshop, first thing I'm looking at, do I have a color cast that needs to be removed in order to continue with the image? This works whether it's black and white or it's color. Obviously, if you're looking for the golden light, you don't want to remove that. But if you're shooting at another time of day, sometimes, depending where you're shooting and some reflections, you're going to see some sort of a color cast in your image. And it needs to be removed first to enhance it a little further on. Once that's done and I've cleaned it up, I'm going to flatten image. I've cleaned the cloning, I've done the content aware, all of the extraneous stuff that needs to be taken care of. So then we assess what this image needs, and we always convert it to black and white with either TK8 or Artisan Pro, or we work in color. It really depends on your image. The image will tell you which way you should go, whether it should be black and white or remain as a color. So we'll generate a rapid mask and select the mask that best deals with the area that we need adjustment in. And from there, we can use anything that's available within Photoshop to make the adjustments. Curves, levels, dodge, burns, etc. And we work on and solve one problem at a time before we go on to the next. Now, if you are interested in getting the software after this webinar, it's very short money. TK8 is under $30, between $25 and $30. This is the website. Topaz, as you know, they have a 30-day free trial. You should try it if you like it. Use it. If you don't like it, you can skip it, but you'll have to do extra work within TK8 and or Artisan Pro. It just does a nice job. Adobe, as you know, is a subscription-based, and you can get the photo product for, I think, $10 a month. It's very reasonable. And Artisan Pro, I think, is around $45 to $50, somewhere in that neighborhood. We're not talking very expensive, hundreds and hundreds of dollars here. It's very, very short money to enhance your images in a way that can't be done just in Lightroom. We're going to show you through the webinar just how powerful all of these pieces of software add up to make a nice wall hanging type of photo that you could sell at a gallery or hang on your wall. It's just going to be better, so much better once you've mastered these techniques, and that your work will really improve dramatically. Thank you. We're going to share it. Does everybody see Lightroom?
Yes.
Okay, great. So at random, I've got a wide variety of images here. I've got some architecture, I've got some people pictures, I've got some beautiful women there, part of my project. I've got some in-water surfing pictures, I've got landscapes, you name it, I've got a wide variety. So I just wanted to show you that we can do anything with this process a lot better than Lightroom. So I'm just going to pick at random. So this one, actually, I hope this building is still there. A good friend of mine is going out to the Palouse in June, and I really hope this building is still standing. It's an old schoolhouse, so it's wonderful to photograph. So let me open this up in Lightroom, and then I'll switch it over to Photoshop. So this, let me make this large so you can see. This is what I did to it, how I processed it. And it doesn't look like this on my TIFF file or how I captured it, my NEF file. It just doesn't look like that. But there was a vision I had of how this should look. So here is the original. And the original somewhat looks like my final, but I loved what I had with these clouds and the blues, and I could do a little dodging and burning here. So it didn't take a whole lot of work to create the other image of black and white. Like I said, I've been using this software for over a decade. So I kind of know what to do, when to do it, and I'm going to take you through this in baby steps and try and recreate this image and a few more in very slow order here today. So if anybody has questions and you're lost, please tell me to slow down and I'll explain. So let's start with the original image, and I'll show you what I do in Lightroom. So this is the original. I come into the develop module. And actually, I'm going to be trying out the DxO Photo 6 in the next few days because I heard nothing but great things about it. So it may be my Lightroom killer, but we'll see. So first thing I would do is hit auto. This one, I don't want to do any transform. And the auto gave me these numbers. But what I do after auto, always, is I'm going to hit the white button right here, the slider, and hold the Alt key down. If you've got a Mac, it's the Command key. And I'm going to drag it to the right until I start seeing the white show up where it's clipping. So then I'm going to drag it back until it's completely black and I have no clipping. So I've expanded my Gaussian. Everybody calls it a histogram, but it's a Gaussian profile. And then I'm going to do the same for the blacks. And I'm just going to drag it to the right to get rid of the black clouding up on you, or getting rid of the black so it's no longer too black and you can actually see it. I typically do not touch any of these others. I may open up the shadows a bit. Auto does a decent job, but it doesn't do the best on every case. So sometimes you need the highlights touched a little bit, as we do in here, just to get some feeling for what I want to do with this is in black and white. This is definitely a black and white image to me, just from what I'm looking at. I will also make sure that my profile is in it. In this particular one, I shot with a Nikon 24-70, and I'll hit the buttons for remove chromatic aberration. And then if the photo requires that I do a transform to make the building straight, or if I've got a tilt to it, I can fix that here. In this case, I'm leaving this alone. So from here, I'm going to bring it to Photoshop, and then I'm going to switch the screen to Photoshop. So I'll just open this up in Photoshop, and then I'll share that screen. Should be in Photoshop. Does everybody see Photoshop? Do we see Photoshop before I continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is what the panel looks like as I showed you in the PowerPoint. This is the TK8 combo model, and this is the TK8 multi-mask. And I've got over here hidden on this little tab is the Artisan Pro. So I typically will go back and forth between these because there are some things in this that are not in this, and there's some things in this that are not in this. This is supposed to be for black and white, but I use it for color as well, really as well. So anything that you could do with one, you could do with the other. So this,
Joe, is there any way you can make that bigger?
I cannot. These are the size they are because this is what they deliver. I will go over each button that I will be using.
Never mind. I figured it out. I got it.
Okay. So here I want to convert to black and white, but I do not wish to use Artisan Pro, and I'll show you why. I'll go through this, and I'll use TK8 first, and then I'll show you what Artisan Pro would look like, and you'll see the difference right away of what to do and when to make the decision for either one. So this is TK8's version of it. So we had a lot of blue skies, so I can drag that slider and make those blue skies just be really popping for me. We take the blue and the cyan, and it gives me a nice contrast now between the sky, the blue sky, and the clouds. I will now take a look at each and every one of these color sliders and see what's in that image in order to make it lighter or darker, depending on what I want to do. So I'm hitting yellow, so everybody knows that grass is not green, it's green and yellow. So you can make it a little bit darker going to the left. And again, we can touch the green one, and you can see right by the building on the ground that it's affecting it. So I want that to show. So I'm making the green go to the right. I'm talking about right here, right here. Now let's see what red does. I don't know if there was any red in this building, but moving these sliders affects a few things, and it affected this little chair here. So I'm going to leave it at that level here. So we're pretty much all set with black and white for conversion with the TK8. So now I'm going to uncheck this, and I will go to Artisan Pro and do the same thing. And my conversion is here. So we have all of these choices that you should at some point try for your images, depending on what you want it to look. It's a dramatic look, or you have a subtle look. Oh, I got to get rid of this one before it works. Oh, there it is. So that's what it would look like using the Artisan Pro. It doesn't do the same job that you could get with Kuipers. I've gravitated to this one where it's called a Fine Art Subtle, and I'll show you what it looks like. And we'll turn this on. And now I have the ability to go in and make some adjustments here too, and make some curve adjustments. This particular photo doesn't work with Artisan Pro without a lot of work. I rather do it in short order using the right software. In this case, it's the TK8. So let me delete, and we'll work with TK8. I could eventually get to this look with Artisan Pro, but many steps, where it's one step with Tony Kuipers.
Joe,
yes.
Which button on TK8 was the conversion button?
Right here. And if you hold your mouse over each of the buttons, there's a pop-up that explains what it's doing. So this one, as you can see at the top up there, it's creating a black and white adjustment layer. And if you moved it over here, it tells you you're making it curves, or and if you're moving it here, you've got other buttons, and you've got everything is explained what it does. And I know we're going to use this hue saturation layer on some. We'll use curves. We'll use hue saturation. I'm going to use this button here, which is the color grading. I love this color grading with a color photograph, not so much in black and white. But once we get there, and we're going to be using dodge and burn and a few of these other small buttons, but I really don't go too deep on this first lesson. I've used them all, and every time it's appropriate, we use it. But in today's lesson with all of them, I'm going to go with very simple dodge, burn, curves, and triple play, and we'll bring it into Topaz, and we'll make some adjustments. And if you like sepia looks, or if you want to put some sort of a color into your photograph, we can do that with Artisan Pro. He's got some very nice looks in there to add in this, but it all depends on the image of what you want to put in. Really nice stuff, and it's just simple as push a button. So let's begin. We've got a nice image here with the sky, and I like to call it sculpting the sky. So I'm going to begin with that, but I'm going to gist of selections with Luminosity Mask too, that you could just make selections of what you want and affect what you want, and nothing else gets touched. So I like this look. We've started. Now I want to do a little bit of dodging and burning through this image to bring out what we want. I've got some nice highlights over here that I want to accentuate, and some nice highlights in here. Then I want to go a little bit dark in these windows, and we've got a nice ladder going up here, or maybe even a brace of whatever that is. I'm going to leave the grass alone. I've got a nice sky. I might sculpt a little bit more. You kind of have to make a decision on every step of this. What's the next move? And some of the next moves will affect you positively in the way that you want, but negatively in another. So we'll have to show you how to mitigate the negative effect, as long as you get what you're looking for in a positive. So here, let's pick the dodge tool first. So that's the gray button here. As you can see, it filled it with a 50% gray, and it turned the blend mode to overlay. So I want to work with this particular zone. So this is the crux of TK. We're going to come to this button here in the top left, and this is the zone system, if you will. So I know I want to work with the lights right here. So I'm going to start with lights. I'm going to start with lights 3. And that's basically just experience. So lights 3 was just a bit too much because it didn't bring out this area here, but it brought out this area here. So I'm going to try lights 2, which is this. And now it's giving me what I want. So I'm going to mask this. So I'll make a selection here on this button right here. This is the output for selection. So I'll select it. I've chosen to configure my system so it doesn't show me the marching ants, but if you want to see them, they're right here. I kind of hate them because they get in the way of me seeing what I'm doing, so I hide them all the time. So we're just going to come in now to this area here. I'm going to change my paintbrush a little bit. I'm going to come in somewhere in about the 60%. I always leave my flow around here about 60-ish. Just because I don't want it to have the full effect. If I need to brush it again, I don't want it to give me 100% of everything. So we're just going to come in here with a very soft brush. And this is where I would take my Wacom tablet and just give it a gentle or a heavier pressure to give me the look that I want. So we're just going to come in and kind of sculpt what we want here. And it's not touching. Look, I can go here in the darks all day long. Nothing. It'll never happen. It's just working on that lights because we made a selection on lights. So I'm kind of just trying to get some contrast look here. On this side, we've got a little bit that I wanted to show here, and up this ladder or brace, whatever it is, we got those two pieces of wood on the exterior, and we're just trying to highlight it a little bit. I'm not a big proponent of sharpening because I think it doesn't need it. If you have good contrast, it gives the appearance of being sharper versus actually sharpening something and maybe getting artifacts. So I've lightened this where I like. I'm going to work on the darks now, which is the darker area down here in the darker window. This is already pretty dark. I'm going to work on this window a bit here and this window here, and just to give it some contrast between what's going on over here. So this is how you unselect this button right here. It toggles the select and deselect. As soon as you hit it, it's a plus minus button right here. We'll hit it. Now we're going to go back in and we're going to create a burn layer, which is here. Now we see we've got 50% gray, and the blend mode is soft light. So again, we'll come up to the zone system, and we'll see which darks is the ones that I want. And 3 is a little bit too much. Let's see what 4 is, and maybe even 5. And I think for what I'm looking to do, which is just these windows, I can select number 5 and then paint this black. And these are going to give me a darker window, which is what I wanted on that non-sun side. And it's going to touch just where I want. I kept the opacity the same, but we can change that if we need to go a little darker. As you can see, it's just working on the darks. Let's go a little bit darker with the opacity. It's always a trial and experiment every time. Start midway and then either add or subtract. There is a back button key right here. It's undo. It's like Control Z. It undoes what you have just done. So again, we're just painting these windows to make them a little bit more darker against the lighter wood on the side here. That always gives you the appearance of sharpness. I'll give a little darkness through here, a little bit through here, and I want this edge up here. Let me see if that's the right one, and we'll pick a 3. Let's see if it gives me, yep, right where I want it. Maybe even 4. 4 is better. I'm going to make a selection again. As you can reuse the same dodge or burn layer. You can see from where it's darker or lighter on this. That's where I painted. That's why I used the 50% gray, so I could see where I've worked. So now I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller because I just want to confine it to this area here. The Wacom tablet really makes it easier, but we can do this with a mouse. Just can't put pressure on it. So give it a little bit of darkness and a little bit of contrast between the dark and the white areas. Make this bigger. I want to come in here, get this, and a little bit through here. So a starting point. So we've got, let me show you where we started. I'll hit the Alt and click key. That's where I started. And after just a few layers, we're much improved and on our way. This is not done by any stretch. Now I want to come in and do a little cloud sculpting on these whites. Some of them are a little too bright. I want to tone them down a bit and maybe make those blacks just a little bit darker, if you will. So let's work on the blacks first. So we've already got a burn layer there. We'll pick the right mask again, or the right zone, I should say. And this is all the blues right here. Everywhere that you see light is where we want to work. We can't work in the black. So as you can see now, going back to the image, this is where the blue sky is. So we can make this a little bit more of what it was. And I don't have to worry about those white clouds at all because my zone system is picked out just the right color or the right value of luminosity. As you can see, I'm painting away at where I want to make some changes. And I can go over some areas multiple times, and other areas I might just want to do it once. So it's really, really, really like painting of where do you want the emphasis of the eye to go, and you decide. So a little bit different than pushing the button in Lightroom and say, give me this look or that look, or using a plugin and saying, give me this look. It does a global job versus what you can do here. So I'm okay with this. Now I'm going to go back to the lights. Actually, I'm going to stay in the darks. I want to make some of these whites a little bit darker. So we're going to unselect, and we'll stay on the burn layer, but I'm going to go this way. And we've now got the white clouds that I want to tone down just a bit. I picked 4. Well, you could see what happens when I pick 5 and 6 or 3. It always depends on what you want that image to look like. So actually, let's look at 3, and I'm going to make a selection, but I'm going to turn my opacity down just a bit because I don't want it to go too dark. And since we're working on just the clouds, I'm going to make this fast with a bigger brush. And it's just going to tone down a little bit, and you may have to give it a couple of passes to get what you want, but your selection will keep you constrained. It's almost like paint by numbers with this. So I'm happy here. I'm going to unselect it. And now I'm going to make a, this is what Tony calls the triple play, the TK8 lights and the triple play and the darks triple play. I always start with the same process. I go with lights first. And this is a Gaussian profile of the blur radius that you're going to get with the mask. So I've chosen 15 with the lights. It works very well for me. Experiment, but 15 seems to be a really good choice. And then it's going to create a number of layers, and I'll go through what it's creating and why it's creating. And then we're going to pick the darks. And I had a Gaussian profile of 20 on that one for the darks. And again, we're in this mode here of the darks are masks based on the luminance value. It also attaches a curved layer with it. So if you need to adjust even more, you can. And we've got the darks all the way from the lightest darks, which was darks 1, all the way down to dark 6. And we've got a blend mode of multiply. So if you do know or don't know, what multiply will do is make things darker. And then we've got the same mask, but we've got the screen mode attached to it. So I can mitigate what I've done up here to give me the right balance. So I never start at darks 1 here because it's just too much. I'll show you, and it's just too much. So I always like to start somewhere in the middle. And let me see what it does for me. And that still is too much. So I'm going to keep coming down until I find the one that I like. And I'll come down to this one, and that's not enough. So we're going to stay with this one. It gave me enough contrast with the blacks. And now I'm going to go to the screen mode with the darks, but it's going to make them a little lighter now because you're using screen mode. So we can mitigate some of the changes that we've made. I'm going to on and off so you can see what's going on. Look at the windows here and watch what happens when I hit this. It brought back some of the detail of what I wanted. Now, if I want more, I'll go up the value here. And to me, that's too much. So I want this one in the bottom as a combination to this one here. Let me show you what this looks like by turning this on and off. That's what it looked like before the triple play, and that's what it looks like after. So these are all little tools that you can use to adjust your photo based on masking that's made right from the image. So now we're going to come down to the lights triple play. Now the top section, as you can see, it's got the S, so it's going to make the whites or lights lighter. And then the bottom section, it's got the M for the multiply, so it'll make the lights darker. Now, I always just test, and I never go to the top one because it's generally too much. Let's see. Not so bad. It did some sculpting, but it didn't blow out the whites. But I do want to mitigate just a little bit. You can see the mask where it's going to be affected. So if I pick, say, this mask here, it's in this mask, you can see anything that's light is going to be affected. So let's see what this does for that image there. And I'll show you where it started versus where it ends. Very, very subtle. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more here. So very subtle, very, very subtle. And I might even drop the lights down a bit. So now we get a little bit more dark, just where I want. And this is always seasoned to your taste of what you like and what you don't like and how you want your image to look. So we've got one more step here in this, or actually two more steps in this image. So this little lightning bolt that you can see my mouse is over, it's going to unselect and delete all of the unselected layers just by pushing this button. So now it compresses everything. So we've got to flatten this group so that I can make a new layer on top. And I'm going to make a pixel layer. And I'm going to make it a smart object. Does everybody know what smart filters, smart objects, and what they can and cannot do for you? Okay, assume yes. So at this point, I want to bring in our friends Topaz. I'm just going to bring in Topaz Studio 2. It's much improved over the first version. And I don't use everything in here. I just have a couple of choices I like that because it's the look that I want. So in here, on this side, you have add filter for all of the different looks. Over on the right side, you have the push button and it'll give you a predetermined look. Plugins are global, but we can make some changes here. I'm going to use precision contrast. Now, the sliders are essentially curves, all levels, and it makes adjustments based on the micro level of the low, medium, and high of the different values in the system here. We can work on the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, but I like to start with the presets and then adjust the presets. So I probably will try a couple of these. So this one is going to give me a balance of the whole image. This one, there's no detail in it, no color detail, but we've got one that works just in black and white. Those are the two I typically would use most of the time for my particular black and white looks. So
Hey,
I'll press
Joe?
the button. Yes.
Are you displaying the Topaz screens? Because it looks like
Oh
I'm
yes, I
seeing-
forgot. My bad. My bad. This is a little different than what I was expecting. And let me go to window, and there it is. There. Sorry.
Right.
I thought it stayed up because it was part of the same screen. My bad. Sorry. That won't happen again.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you said it because so balance here gives you one look. As you saw what happened with the swirly sky using the details, it gave me, maybe more than I wanted, but it gave me a lot of what I wanted too. So I have to choose which is the best look here. So I like this, but I don't like what it did here. So I'm going to use it, and I'm going to show you a little trick that you can't do anywhere else. So we'll apply it, and I'm just going to press, not yet, I'm going to put one more little effect in here, and it's going to be called edges. Now, this is something from way, way, way back in the day from a company that made BuzzSim, and Topaz bought it or redeveloped it, and they put this little thing in here called edges. I use it a lot when there's a lot of structure like this, and it'll make the edge of these images either dark, I can choose the dark tone or the light tone. And if I press light, let's see what happens. Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? I think it's not the right look for lights. So we're going to stay with the darks. But this Photoshop. So this is what that plugin did. As you can see, plugins are global. And it gave me some look in this that I liked. It gave me some look in this that I hate. So I can mask out simply by going here and creating a mask that's attached to that layer. Now, it gives you a white mask, so everything is coming through. But now I can come in here and start picking and choosing which mask works the best for me. As you can see, it fills it with a midtones 2 there. Here's a midtones 3. And here's a midtones 1. And you have to decide which one is the right look for your particular image. My favorite usually is the midtones. I tend to go here first and see, and if it's the right look, it's the right look. And just leave it there. So it gave me the Topaz look that I was looking for, and then it masked out the stuff I didn't want and didn't like. So we're nearly done with this image, but there is a feature in TK8 that I absolutely love, and I hope that you practice and try this. And we're going to make a vignette. Now, as you know, everybody that is anybody with software can make a vignette. Usually they're oval, or they're round, or they're square with rounded edges. But this method, I can make it any shape that I want and anywhere I want. So if I want you to go right to this building, I'm going to make just for playing around here, where do I want your eye to go? All right, so this is just a practice one. But if I go here, and then I go to this button here, freehand vignette. Just hold it and click the button. It brings up this pop-up for Gaussian. So basically, as you know, Gaussian is just softening the edges. So the pixel, I stay with the standard, because if you go to 0, it's going to give you a hard edge. So now we have a little bit more drama. I'll turn that on and off. And your eye is going more to the building. And if it's still too much, you can drop the opacity and get it where you love it. So now we've got the Ansel look, if you will, with the vignettes. It was famous, as you know, for burning the edges. But we can do it in a different look than he could. So I'm going to show you where we started and where we ended. So I really had a vision for this particular image of being black and white, and I love those skies. So I wanted to emphasize them. I had, you pray for these days when you've got blue sky and puffy clouds, and you're shooting architecture, because it just works. 100% of the time, it just works. So this is what I would do for this particular image. It didn't take long. It took longer because I'm explaining everything that we're doing. But once you're used to these buttons and what they can do for you, or these looks, it's a lot easier decision. And you can actually see what this is going to look like before you start and achieve this result. So take a few minutes for questions. If I went too fast and you want an explanation, now's the time, and then we'll go on to another image. So if you're muted, I'll unmute you. And if you're not, does anybody have questions? I'm going to unmute everybody.
Joe, this is just a hypothetical, but if you had an empty sky and you dropped in a Photoshop sky replacement, could you go and then do everything you just did?
You bet.
As well?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would have to merge it, as you know, because the sky replacement is just basically a background. And then once you merge the two layers together, then it becomes one. And then you could do any of these tools, select the sky again, and then just do what pleases you as far as the look. This is pretty powerful. And I know it's different than what most folks are used to with Lightroom. But it's making you a painter instead of just a photographer. It allows you to really drive the viewer's eye to where you want, and enhance the look of the image beyond what a plugin can do. And I don't care if it's DxOs or Nix or Topazes, they're all global. And this is not. This is really fine-tuning your image. Try to imagine doing this in Lightroom. It's not possible. So before we go on to the next one, any other questions?
Joe, it's Lorraine. You mentioned that when you did the Topaz features, that it kind of modified a work that you had done prior. Why wouldn't you do the Topaz steps before you did the TK8 and some of the other settings? If you didn't want those steps altered.
Personal preference, I like doing the Topaz towards the end, A lot of people will just use the triple play only as the final. I like to play around and see where it works the best for me and for my particular look. Everybody's going to develop their own look, so it's always experiment and test for you of when is the right time to use it. So in my case, I've elected because I know what it's going to do for me at the end. I know the Topaz product like nobody's business, so I know what it's going to do. So I know when to place it into my image.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and sometimes it's a little too harsh. You have to. I mean, it's a nice product. I really like it, but it's sometimes a little too over the top, heavy-handed. So I want to give it the finesse with that mask. I never use it right out of the box. It always gets a mask for me. Any other questions before we move on to the next image? And I'll pick something different. I'll pick a landscape, and we'll do some painting, and away we go. So I'll leave Photoshop up. I'm just going to close that, and we'll leave Photoshop up so you can see it. All right, let me pick my Lightroom. Hang on. And we'll go share that screen. This is crazy. It should just share whatever the heck you've got on there. So there's Lightroom again. All right, so there's a lot of images here. Lorraine, I know you recognize this place and this place. In fact, I think you were with me, not this day, but the second day. So we've got a lot of them here. Let's pick, say, this one. All right, so I'll pick the raw file, which is here, shot with the old Nikon. And this is Utah out at Capitol Reef. And I think this is a place where they come with their dune buggies and go-karts and up and down these hills. I don't like that they do that, but they do. So we've got a couple of things here that I want to fix. And first and foremost, I like the sky that I want to fix. I want to fix some of these mountains to give you some highlights through here and brighten them up and make the shadows a little bit darker, just to give it a little bit of a more dramatic look. It seems to be my particular style. I like drama in my images. So I always go through the same process. I hit auto just to see where it's going to bring me. And then I'm going to make my adjustments with my white point. Sorry. And I'll bring it to the right until I see white. And I back off until now I've expanded that Gaussian just a bit more. And we'll do the same with the blacks. Let's see where I can go right there. And we'll back off until there are no blocking on the blacks, right about there. Unless that's dirt on my screen, I think about there. So I like this, and I like the adjustment for the exposure. So now I'll bring this into Photoshop. So bear with me while I do that, and then I'll switch the screen. There's got to be a better way to just whatever's on the screen instead of sharing a new screen every time. But here we go. Give me a second. Whatever's on the window. Here we are. We'll share it. All right. Can now everybody see Photoshop?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I tend, at some points when I want to work the sky first, I'm going to do a sky selection here. I don't want the background work done. So I'm just going to hit a Control-J too many times. And then we're going to do a sky selection. And we'll work on that first. I'm not going to get into saving your skies as channels to bring back later. That may be for lesson 3. But know that you can do that. Make a selection, save it as a channel, and then you could recall that selection later on for use at some other time. But today's lesson is just basics. So we've got the sky, and I want to do something with this, and I like a lot of it, but I want to make some contrast. So a curve layer, a little S curve will do a lot. You could go through here and just increase contrast, but that gives you way too much. So I just want a little bit of an S curve here. Make it darker, make it lighter, just a little bit of a contrast boost. So, we bring the shoulder up a little bit and we bring the toe down a little bit, and we make the slope a little bit bended towards the darker side. So I'll show you the before and after. Just a little. You see what we did with just one little curve layer, and it hit the sky pretty nicely. So now I want to work here. So we're going to go with dodge at first, and I'm going to pick the right areas to dodge. So we're going to go up. Usually I have two screens here, so if you see me go like that, that means I'm looking up at my second screen. I'm not used to it on a single screen. So we've got lights, darks here we're going to work on. So we have to pick the right one. So we're going to go down the slide until we find just the right one. So now at darks 4, I can work on a lot of this, most of this, to lighten it up. And I'm not going to hit that sky whatsoever because now we've got black up there. So we're going to come in and make my selection right here. And we're going to just turn that opacity up just a hair, somewhere about 75-ish. I don't have to worry about the size of the brush because we're just going to come in and lighten up here. And believe me, we're going to add some darkness in here as well. So I do want a little bit more lightness in here. And we'll sculpt this like we would a sky. We'll sculpt this to make it just what we want. All right, so we've lightened this up just about right. And because we're working with a mask and a selection, it's not all being treated the same. It's not all the same color or the same brightness level. We're just hitting where we want. I'll show you the difference. Subtle, but the darks got left alone. And now we're going to enhance those darks. So we'll come in, we'll shut that off, and we're going to make a darks layer, or burn layer, if you will, and we'll pick the right mask selection, and I'm going to guess it's around 5, maybe 4. 4 is too much, so 5. So we'll make it selection, and we're just going to burn this. We're going to turn this up a little bit more, and we're going to burn the darks just ever so slightly. Make a little bit more of these shadows. We've got some down here at this rock, and we're just hopefully making it pop a little bit, but we've got a bit of work to do with this particular image. Now, this was shot late in the day, but I want to warm this up, this color here, and there's a nice little feature in the TK, and it's called Make It Glow. First, I'm going to unselect everything so we don't just work on those. So we're going to come in here for Make It Glow, and it's right here. And again, it's got some radius for it. I just leave it at the default. It does a nice job. And we're going to see this pop just a bit. Do you see it warmer now? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works. It works real well on the reds. Oh. And yeah, look at that. That's one button, and it just did the job. It made it really right where I wanted it to be. Now, if this was too strong, I could either lower the opacity or I could add a mask to it. In fact, I'm going to add a mask to it. And I don't want the sky to have that look. So we will come up to the brights. And I've masked out just the sky, maybe even a 2. Okay, and I left everything else alone because now this is black and this is light. And we still kept the look. So here, there's a decision time. What do we want to work on? Now, I know I still need to sculpt these clouds a bit more, and I want to put some oomph in this, some contrast, which is going to be my Topaz. So let's work on the sky first. We're going to burn down the brights and just give it a little sculpting. Clouds you don't want sharpened, so that's why I tend not to use sharpening, because then it adds a lot more problems to your image and makes you have to fix things you don't want to. If you've got a good contrast, it gives the appearance of sharpness 100% of the time. So let's pick the right tone here, and we're going to go, since it's color, I'm going to pick with the color picker this time, this color. As you can see, anything to the left of the middle is not very saturated. Anything from the right of the middle is very saturated. But it picked a bluish color, as you can see. And we're going to make a selection from that. And that's what it's going to work on. And we just press OK. If I want more, I will make the slider. It's right there, so I can make it show me more like that. That's not what I want. We bring it back to what I want it to work on, which is about here. In fact, we'll just reset it to here. We have our mask, and I'm just going to make a selection. And now we've got, since I used the color picker, this is where you need to be careful. My brush is now the color of whatever it picked. So as you can see over here, so we need a white to make it lighter or a black to make it darker. But we want to go with a little bit of white here. I'm going to turn my opacity down because I don't want it to have an over-the-top look. Just a little bit of sculpting through here. And we picked parts of that sky or parts of that cloud that had a little bit of darkness to it and a little bit of blue. So I'm lightening it up a little bit just to give it a sculpted look. As you can see, it's just changing ever so slightly. And you don't have to worry about being precise because we don't have that color down here in the mountains. So it didn't pick it. And you can paint down here all day long. It's not going to affect it. So we take a look and we do a before and after. I kind of like what it's done for me. It's not so over the top anymore. So I like that. But now I want to put a little bit of oomph into the picture. So this is where my TK triple play comes in, or Topaz. It's always a personal choice. So we're going to go through the same process where we pick the lights first. And that's up to you. It's habit for me so that I know that the darks are on the top. And that's the first thing I'm going to work on versus the lights. I don't like to get confused. I'm old. So I, again, will start down near the bottom of what it's going to do. And that's a little bit much, but let's see if we can mitigate that. It's too much. We'll try the bottom one. Yep, I got what I want right there. Now let's go to the lights. And do I want to make the sky brighter or the lights too bright? It's too much right here, but I can mitigate that with this one. Yeah, so this is before, and it's very subtle. It's always very subtle. And again, if you want or need to, you can come in and edit this curves layer to give you a little bit more of what you want in the area you want. And this is all very gentle and very subtle effects that we're getting here. So I'm happy with the triple play, what it's done for me. So now we'll get rid of all the excess layers, and I'll change the group to flatten it out, make a stamp layer, and again, I'm going to make a smart object out of it. Topaz does not support smart objects, but I do it anyway because it names it. So I don't have to go back and name that layer. What did I do? And I'm not confused. It just names it. So here, I only want to increase the contrast a little bit. So we're going to go back to the precision contrast. This really does a nice job I really do like it. It's one of their better features. So we're going to click through the ones that typically would work in a landscape. This is the balance. This is the color. Yes, go ahead.
Again.
Oh, well, I keep forgetting my old age and my bad. Sorry about that. This should just automatically do this for you. My horrible, sorry. Here's something else. Through the window. Let me know when you can see it. There it is.
There we are.
So this is a bit over the top, and this is the color detail one. It gave me a lot of detail up here where I want, but I think it's a little strong. So I'm going to opt for the balance one on this particular one. And we get detail up here, but not so over the top. You can see things that are showing up here that were not highlighted before. You see these striations on the side of the mountains that you just couldn't see very much before. You can see where the people with their dune buggies are coming down this road here. So I like this one, and I'm just going to press accept. And it should bring me back to Photoshop, which I have to now share. I'm going to complain about this. This is crazy having to share it every single time. All right, so now this is what we have in Photoshop. I actually don't want to put a mask on this. I kind of like what we've got here. And I just want to do a little bit more dodging here. And then I think I'll be done. So here, I'll flatten this out. And then I'm going to put a dodge layer in there. Went to the wrong place. There we go. Dodge layer. What's going on? It should go right on top of this. There it is. Okay. So I just want to emphasize these mountains just a little bit, or the bumps in the mountains. So we're going to pick the right zone again. And it's in the darks. Nope. Nope. Maybe. Let's go the other direction. Nope. There we are. It's now a lights 2, and this is what I want to work on, some of these little bumps in the mountains. So we're going to make a selection. And we're at 41%. I'm going to bring this up just a bit, and I'm going to just paint away. And it's only going to affect that particular zone, which is down here as well. So we get the feeling of sunset, if you will, here, right at the top. So I would be really happy with this at this point. Let me show you the before and what we've done with this process. So I will open it up to questions that I hope I wasn't going too fast and you got a grasp of this. This is pretty advanced, but I'm just doing the simple ones here today, mostly with dodge and burn and some contrast adds, and you can still get great effects. So does anybody have questions? I think everybody's mic is open. If it's not, I'll open you up.
I'm
Then,
very much a beginner, Joe, so I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can.
yeah.
I
Just
only
showing you what's possible for you.
Right, and I understand the concepts. I just have to learn how to navigate the apps.
Yep.
You know, that's the
There
challenge.
are the I'm not a vendor for these guys, but I do push them a lot because it is absolutely better. And once you understand how this all works, your product is just going to get over the top better by exponential numbers. It's just going to be better. So
I'm excited for it. So
and it took me a long time to get comfortable with what all of the tools do. Like anything, you buy a film camera, digital camera, and it's got menus, and you got to figure it all out. And you know, we're not 20 anymore, so things come a little slower to me.
that's for sure. Thank you.
And we just take the time, but I promise you, if you put the time into this, you'll see an improvement. I know some of the folks. I actually know everybody here, and some of them I've worked with on this product before. Specifically, Mel has been one of my students for a while, and his work has just improved exponentially using this technique.
Awesome.
Joe,
Throw the questions at me. Throw the questions at me. I understand this is deep, but
Joe, it's Lynn. Can you hear me?
I can hear everybody.
Okay. Does this add to the noise in the picture?
Well, no. I didn't address noise only because I typically shoot at ISO 100.
No, ISO. Okay.
So I don't care if it's a long exposure. I have a tripod. This is why I have a tripod, so that I can get, what I want, and I don't have to worry about that noise. I mean, this is not a scene where it's darkness. This is a late afternoon, just before sunset scene. So there's no reason to have noise here.
Do you always use Topaz 2, or do you use any of the other Topaz when you do this?
There's an occasion where I will use the old version because they didn't put some of the nice things into the newer version. So I keep copying the old one just in those once in a while occasions where I need it. But it's there. It's just a look. I mean, I generally don't use the looks that Topaz provides. Their vignetting and some of their tinting, and unless I've got a need for it. So it's a once in a while for me. It's not a look for me. I like to use purity, just what what Photoshop will let me do. So any questions before we move on to another type of image? We go to architecture, things are going to be a little bit more intense and a little deeper. So this is the time to ask before I throw us all into the deep end. All right, so let's begin. I'll pop us out of this one, and I'll bring up Lightroom again and show you the image. What we're going to use. I'm not going to save this. So let me share the screen first. Bear with me. This should be automatic. Share something else. Share the window and Lightroom. Okay. So here we are back in Lightroom, and as some of you that know me well know that I've been shooting a lot of architecture work, and I love that stuff, and hope at some point to have a show with it. So that's why I've been out doing it. So I've got a couple here I really absolutely love, and they're a real recent one. I shot it with a Fuji, and I want to show you how and what you can do with it. So I'm going to pick on this layer right here. And that's going to give me this. Or I'm going to pick on this layer. Actually, I like this one better. As you can see from the name up here, DxO Deep Prime, I absolutely love it. And I recommend that if you don't have it, go get the trial and watch what happens to your images, your raw images. It does a much better job with profiling your camera lens than Lightroom will ever do. Again, we go to Auto. And I just like to see what our friends at Adobe are going to do for me. With using DxO, it takes the profiling away. It already builds it in, so you don't have to do that button here. It provides you with a DNG file, which is a digital negative. So this one, I believe, was made for black and white. I saw it. Actually, I just shot this last week. I was down there for this reason, and I wanted to get black and whites, and I had one of those blue sky days with the white wispy clouds, and this was probably somewhere about a minute exposure with a ND filter on it. It's because I had the reflections going here. You can see it's no longer a white puffy. It's now a wispy puffy. And none of this got affected. So there was a polarizer on, and there was a 10 ND. So you can imagine that's 12 stops. So and it was early afternoon, so it was pretty bright. So at 50 on my ISO, and it just made a long exposure. So again, the same thing. I don't do very much here. Occasionally I'll use this curves that they have here, but only as needed. So we're going to bring this into Photoshop, and I'll share the screen again. Bear with me while I change the screen. You would think I could just say, "Hey Siri," but no. Makes you do things. So I think you can, from the example I showed you before, kind of guess which black and white that I'm going to use here, because it's more tuned into what the Kuiper version could do than what the Artisan Pro will do for you. And I do want to get to some images, and I'll do it on the next one, where are we using more Artisan Pro. And see if we can bring it in here. But right away, we're going to go darker in the blues, and this is always to your taste of what you want to do here. So I absolutely love shooting buildings that have this silverish siding to them. It really does a wonderful job in black and white. So we're going to open up some of these yellows in here because it's really nice reflections. Let's see if there's any reds. And a little bit. So we're going to open it up. That keeps me from dodging and burning, but I like a lot of what we've got here, so we're just going to use it. So simple process on this one. We're going to just do curves, dodge, burn, and a little bit of topaz, and you're done. It's really not that difficult for this one here. So I'm going to start with a dodge layer. I want to open up some areas I want to improve, which is down here. I see some pieces of this reflection or this window that I want to open up. So again, we'll go to the area where I think it is, and that looks like it might be a 2 darks, so 3. Nope, that's actually the wrong direction. Open up too much. So it's probably going to be a lights 2 or 1. Lights 1. So you never know. So we've got lights 1 here. I've got a white brush, and we're just going to come in, and I'm going to open that opacity up a whole lot because I'm not going to affect anything else except this little area in here. I want this to be in the picture. I don't want it to be blacked up and hidden. I want that reflection to be there. Here, and I think a few passes over this will give me the outline of these reflections here. So now I want to open up some of this, but lights 1 is just too much. So we'll go back in, and we're going to go to darks 2 and darks 4. And right about there, I'll make a selection. And we're going to make this area right through here a little bit lighter. And we're pretty high here. So again, it's all seasoned to your particular taste, what you want to show. But it's not difficult. Even if you're not seasoned with Photoshop, dodging and burning is your best friend. And you can get out of it a whole lot that you can't get with a plugin. You just can't. I can't emphasize that enough. You just can't. You just get what you want out of dodging and burning in the areas that you want. So we're getting a little bit of shape in here. I think maybe I'll go up a little higher in the opacity. And just open it up a little bit. I'm pretty happy there. Maybe here a little bit, just a little. Those windows I actually want to do some darkening on later in the black area, so we have them stick out. But believe me, this type of image, when you've got the white puffies and the blue sky, it makes processing just simple. It's just dodge and burn for the most part and some contrast. All right, so you can see on this window here, because I've used a gray, where the heck did I use the brush? Because it shows up very, very easily. So now we're going to come in and we're going to burn these windows down a bit, but I have to zoom in and we're going to unselect. And we'll pick the right zone. First we'll put a burn layer there. We'll pick the right zone. And I think we're going to be somewhere there, right there. So the windows are now white, which is where I want to burn. So we'll come in, make a selection. As you notice, the surrounding areas had a little bit of gray to them, so it's not really, really isolated. So we're just going to be careful and into these windows and small brush. And make it a little bit darker so it'll stand out against the light, and that'll give the appearance of being a whole lot sharper. And I don't know if anybody does this, but it really does work very well. Just a few adjustments and there you are. So I'm kind of happy. I'm going to give this a second pass. And I'm staying away from that building so much. The frame is not a problem. It's the building. If I go near it, it's going to get a little bit of a burn too. So we'll just stay with the small brush right there. Let me show you the difference. They now look black, as you would expect or hope. So next step, we take a look at what we've done and kind of decide where is the next place where we want to work. And I want to add a little bit of what Lorraine asked about. I'm going to put Topaz in here now to show you that you can put it to any part of the process that you want, front or back. So what I want Topaz to do is make the sky pop for us a bit more. And we'll come into Topaz Suite, Studio. You know, and they make a nice product. They really do. But I tend to use what I like all the time. So again, we're going to use some edges here. So those of you that do a lot of like trees or buildings, take a look at this and see if it helps you. I mean, certainly you can go to a very heavy strength, and that's probably not what you want to do. You can see the heavy-handedness in here. So I take typically between 15 and 20, and that's enough. So then I decided it's going to be light or dark. This case, lights works because it did this to this building here, and it made a nice separation between the dark and the light. So we're going to keep the light. If you want to make the edge a little bit thicker, you can. Always a personal choice. Always a personal choice. So then I'll come up and use my other favorite, which is the contrast one. And this is basically a little micro contrast. You could play with. Go ahead.
Screen's not up. Topaz.
Oh my goodness! I thought we had it. I am so old. All right, and I'm in Topaz now, basically, instead of Photoshop. So I've used the lines or edges to enhance it, and I made the edges white because it really made this pop for me right here on these parts of the building. I'm not sure if anybody's been down there to photograph this, but it's the Gehry building. He was a pretty bizarre designer of buildings, but it's in the MIT complex. And this is the backside of the complex, which I really do favor over the front side, especially if you get a day like I had there. It's just wonderful, really wonderful. And you're not crowded by people, whether it's the weekend or the daytime. Gone both times, you know. Weekend's easier for parking, but. So a little enhancement. We'll show you the other one, which is the details. I think details is a little much, really a little much. It gave me a lot, but I think too much. Show it before, that's before details. That's after. Put the balance one on. So that's balanced, and that's apply it. Before, after, and it's just enough of the soft touch to give me the look that I'm particularly after here. And just press accept. And it should bring us to Photoshop again, and I'll change that screen. We have to keep changing the screens. So now we're back in Photoshop. I hope everybody can see it. I'll show you the before and after. And you can see those colors just scream black and white all day long. You know, it's a nice color photograph, but personal preference, it looks better black and white for me. This is actually going to go in my show for my project. I like it so much. So that was Topaz, and why I used the smart filter. See how it named it? I don't have to go in and name it. It did it for me. It has no other effect on this product because Topaz doesn't support smart filters, but being lazy, it named it for me. And all these others are already named. Black and white, a little dodge, a little burn, and now we've got Topaz. So it named everything for me. So now I'm going to try the process for TK triple play. It will give it a little bit of a light-handedness. Not so heavy, but just a subtle one, and I'd be happy with this. So I opened it up, and it gave me just enough of that wispy clouds there. I may burn this a little bit too, and open up those clouds a bit with a dodge. But let's see what this triple play does for me. And I know I don't want to make the darks too dark, so I want to stay closer to the bottom here. And it made the corner up there darker. But let's see how we can mitigate that and make things too much. I think there. So now we'll go to the lights, and let's see if we can open those. Yeah, yes, right there. And you don't always have to use the bottom one. Sometimes just the top one is enough. I don't like what it did here, so let me see if I can find a mask that takes care of that, which is that one. Maybe the one above it. Yep. It darkened it down just enough. As you can see the mask here. Advanced course, I can get in and actually open up this mask and paint out what I don't want it to touch. but that's for the next class, or so I can actually customize these custom masks to my taste. So it affects just what I want. So we'll get rid of all these extras and we'll go to Photoshop again. Did we lose something here? Oh, there it is. Had to put it back on. All right, so we're at but here. Now I want to work on these clouds just a hair, just a hair. So we're going to flatten this out and we'll make a dodge brush. And I'll pick the right zone. And we're probably around 3 or 4. Too much? Not enough, so it's going to be 2. There it is. So I'll make a selection. And we can see the marching ants, so we can be careful. We have a black sky there, so as long as I stay away from the building, in good shape. And we'll make the opacity. We're good there. Actually, I can make a bigger brush and just worry about the clouds and not the building. As you can see, we're tailoring it to our particular likes and needs. Salt and pepper to your taste. And we've done enough. And maybe here, I want to match it. And here, and a little here, because we've got some reflections in that zone. And here a little bit, just a little. I feel done with this one. Please tell me any questions. And really, this was simple. Dodge burn and a couple of buttons on the TK. And it gave me from here to here. My personal preference, I love the black and white on this image versus trying to get the color right. Just sometimes you get lucky with the clouds in the sky. But if you're prepared, you get what you want. So any questions at all? And I think maybe we'll have time for, we'll get late. If anybody doesn't mind running over, we'll probably have time for at least one more. We unmute everybody.
I love the black and white image myself, Joe.
I love black and white.
I do as well. And I used to shoot film years ago, but now that I'm doing the digital, I haven't gotten back to the film version, but it looks great.
Well, digital, I was a non-believer at first, and I kept my D800 as my first camera into the digital world, and I was shooting with an F5, the old Nikon, up until 2012, and then once the 800 came out, I said, "All right, now it's better." So I switched, and I haven't looked back. It's just better, but I knew I had to learn this. If I was going to create really wall hangers, I had to learn this, because in the film days, in the darkroom, we got to be masters at it, dodging and burning, and
Right, I did.
Different contrast filters, but you keep the same concept, but you have to learn the new tricks. So I jumped right in with both feet, right in the deep end, and I'm happy I did. I think I know what the heck it's going to look like before I click the shutter. So I shoot with intent of, is it going to be black and white or color? So it makes it easier for me, especially since I'm a little bit on the colorblind side.
That makes sense.
Well, I mean, I don't always shoot black and white. I shoot color. I love color, only when it's appropriate. Only when it's appropriate. And I always ask myself, does the image look better in black and white or color? And that image tells me what to do. I don't tell it. The image tells me. So I think we have, if everybody's okay, I mean, we're running. We've been doing the questions and answers in between. So I'll do another one if you're wanting to stick around. All right?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Sounds
So let me
good.
just, all right, let me pick one out a little bit different. So give me a second and I'll share the screen for Lightroom, and we'll pick something maybe a little bit that we haven't done. We've done a landscape. We've done a wrong screen. Here it is. There we go. Now you should see. Let's see what we got here. Seascapes, my favorite. And seascapes do not always have to be color, but I'm going to make one that's color. So this one, I really love this one. I tend not to hang on to, photos I love. I just, when I'm done, and go on to the next one. But this was in Ireland, right behind the hotel that we stay at. So I really enjoyed this one. So there's some different techniques in this one that I haven't shown you yet that will work. It was just one of those moments, right before breakfast, I grabbed the camera and said, I'm out of here, and left my bride sitting to have breakfast by herself. But she was okay. So I like what Photoshop has done in most of the places. So I want to enhance these fog banks, and I want to do something with this, and I definitely need to do something with this down here. And I know that Lightroom can do dodge and burn. They just can't do it like with selections. And I know that Lightroom now has a mask you can use for luminosity, but it's a joke. Not like we can. It works, but it just doesn't work like you can do in Kuiper's world here. Now, this is usually where I make the decision, black and white and color. I always hit this button and then decide. So this one for sure is not a black and white, but we'll go color. So I'm going to do very much the same thing. I always make sure I'm not clipping, and we bring that Gaussian out as far as it'll go. You stretch it out and more data for you to work with, and bring it back till it's not. And black and white, we make sure, the color dark, we want to make sure we're not blocking up. So we've got it off the edge, but we've expanded that Gaussian. We can see it's a little bit on the high side over here. That's these, and we're going to see if we can turn those highlights down a little bit. And I'm not going to play too much here. We'll make sure we have our profiles in there. What the heck did I shoot this with? 24-70 Nikon. This was a couple of years ago. So we'll bring this into Photoshop, and then I'll switch the screen. I do a lot of focus stacking and tilt shift lenses. So next course, we'll bring a little bit more of that in, where it's merging, lining and merging and doing stacking. So I have to put a presentation for that together and show you how, but we will. I hope everybody tunes in. So we'll share the screen again. And here's my Photoshop. Okay. What first? So these are a little bright. And as you know, always you want to make the reflections a little bit darker. So we'll make this dark. We're going to tone this down. It's nice, warm morning light, but it's a little hot for my taste. So we're going to use this color picker for making a mask this time. We'll pick this, and we're just going to pick right here where it's a little bit bright. As you can see, it's saturated because it went past the halfway mark. So anything past to the right is saturated or oversaturated. Anything to the left is not so saturated. And we're going to show you some techniques in the next one where we can use a hue saturation layer, which works real well here for toning things down. This is just the beginning. Basic. So as you can see, judging from making the selection here, we've got just this. So this is going to be a burn. So we don't even need to make a selection. Since it's the only thing there, I'm just going to press this burn key from our selection. And it gives me the gray layer again with the soft light. And we're a little big on this, so we'll make this dark, smaller, and opacity is good. So we're just going to darken this down just a bit, and that's too much. So we'll back off, reverse that, and let's see if this does. Yep, that does a little bit better job in the reflection as well. And you always want your reflections to be darker than the object that it's reflecting. I don't know if folks knew that, but it gives it a more realistic look. All right, so now I want to pick this one, and we're going to work a little bit with this color filter a bit today, more than we did in the other ones. So we've got a nice green tree there. Again, make a selection because we've already got the burn tool up there. And we're just going to work with that tree and stay away from the orange or yellow. Make that tree just a bit darker. This a little darker, and let's see if we can make those mountains a little bit darker. I think another selection, and I don't like using the color one for that one. I just want to go with normal luminosity selection there, right? Maybe 3, 2. And we should be able to stay away from the fog that's burning over this lake. This is Killarney, Ireland, Lake Killarney in the Killarney National Forest. Literally, our hotel back door was right there. So, nice place to stay. If you ever make the trip over to the motherland, call me. I've been so many times I can show you where to go. Instead of hiring a guide, I just tell you where to go. Right, so we want to make this a little bit darker at the end there too. Pretty happy. I want to do something with this blue sky a little bit, and I want to make these a little bit lighter. So we'll go with unselecting here. I'm going to go with a dodge tool. Let's see if we can pick the right zone for that white puffies. Probably between 2 and 3, and I'm thinking 3. Let's see what 4 looks like. Nope, it's 3. And we'll make a selection. And we're going to try to stay away from the sky, but if we hit the sky, we'll just light it up everywhere. We're blending it right here. This is going to take a couple of passes, and we've got a low opacity. Turn it up a little bit. There. Okay. So I actually want to put a little bit of a gradient into the sky to darken it down just a little bit. So I'm going to make a pixel layer now. I'll unselect all of this, make a pixel layer. And here, there's a nice little tool, and it is called depth. And I can do my gradients in any direction that I want and any strength that I want. And I can make it go dark, and I can use the first button, which will bring it down from here to about here, the second button down to about here, and the third button brings it all the way to the bottom. And sometimes I will do both. And in this case, I am going to do both. So I'm going to make this sky just a little bit darker. Oh, missing selection. Why? Oh, that's why. Select all. Have to tell it what to do. There we go. Gave it a little bit more definition in the sky, a little bluer. Let me see what one more looks like. Not bad. So now I want to make this bottom section a little lighter. So we'll switch it from bottom to top. And I'm going to go back to the lightest, but I want this up a little bit higher. So we're going to use the middle one. One more. And we go. So that was Artisan Pro. So you can use it for color as well as black and white. Let me show you where we started. Finesse, just a little finesse. And that's all this is. I'm going to give it a little bit of contrast, but I'm just going to use a simple curve. I'm going to stay away from the triple play. I'm going to stay away from Topaz and just use dodge and burn on this particular job. And I think we can accomplish the same thing in very short order. So I want midtones, and I want curve. And now this is going to attach a midtones layer to it. And let's see what increased contrast does for me. I like most of it. Then I'll get the scrubby. And we're making that darker right there. Those that have curves experience, you know what I'm talking about. Those that don't, learn it because it is really, really your best friend. I don't like that. I'm going to start a little bit here and start over here and open up this just a bit. I like that better. It doesn't always have to be an S curve, but it gives you what you want. And you can see if you have the eyedropper where it's actually going to affect your image. Because it makes a dot right over the eyedropper of what's happening and what brightness value it is. And I'm pretty happy with this. And this is where we started. And that's where we ended. This was a simple photograph. It didn't need a lot of editing, just a little bit of enhancement. And I think we opened it up a bit here. We darkened this down. We made the reflection darker. And this is no longer an eyesore here. We opened up the fog a bit and made the contrast against the darker mountains here and made the sky just with that little gradient a little bit bluer right where it normally should be. So please, any questions? Because we're coming up on the 4 o'clock hour. Let me make sure that everybody's unmuted. And this is really the time to ask away. Make sure everybody gets to be unmuted. Okay. Now's your chance. Now's your chance. Anything you don't understand or didn't grasp.
Yeah, I came in late, Joe. I kind of missed the beginning. I'm not familiar with your TK8. Is that a standalone program, or is that just a Photoshop plugin, or is that something that's done by Topaz? What's the story with that?
All right. Well, TK8 is he named it after himself. His name is Tony Kuiper. He's a scientist out in Arizona, and he developed this algorithm and panel to use luminosity. All of what I'm showing you, it can be done by hand, but it's a nightmare. Shift all clicks and then shift all click shifts. It's crazy. I learned it, but it's crazy. Instead, it's a really inexpensive panel. As you can see here, you've got the masking panel, you've got a lot of features, and you've got a lot of features that are just accessible from Photoshop. But there are some special things that are here under the TK actions that he developed that really, really make a difference in what your photo will look like. And these are all self-developed by Tony himself. Yeah. And Tony was the first one to come out with this luminosity masking panel. And now you've got several that are like Greg Benz and there's a few others that have followed in his footsteps. They've gone down their own path with their own panels. With this guy he's just ahead of them. If he comes out with 8, then they're still catching up. If he comes out with 10, they're catching up. So I really recommend, and it's like, I don't know, between $25 and $30. It's short money. It's nothing money. The other one that I quickly showed you, which was the Artisan Pro, I got to tell you, this was made for black and white. Do you know Joel Tinsinger? I think that's his last name pronounced. He's like really a fine art artist for black and white, and it's all he does.
Yeah.
Lots of selections, lots of masks. He puts hours and hours and hours and hours into each piece, but they're masterpieces. But the tools that he has, he developed like Tony did on his own. But I use pieces of his tools or all of his tools to make my look. I don't want mine to look like his.
Yeah,
He's got a lot of people that are devotees of Joel, and all of their work looks exactly like his.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a clone. I like the tools that he's got. My stuff doesn't look like Joel's. My stuff doesn't look like Tony's. My stuff looks like mine.
Yeah.
But I'm able to grab all of the tools that they have and use it to my advantage to make my look.
Yeah.
So these are great little programs. Really, all the stuff you cannot do in Lightroom, no matter what. Some people just don't want to get beyond there. But if you're hanging in a gallery and you want $1,000 for that piece of work, you got to do this. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you all of the names, the famous names that I know that we all use this. Like Sweet uses it, Barkley uses it, Drew uses it. Guy Tell uses it. We all use it. I've talked to each and every one of them. We all use it. And this is the next level. I mean, if you want to go and improve your skill level, this is the direction you have to go.
Yeah.
You'll never get beyond Lightroom if you think Lightroom is going to be your be all to end all. It just won't.
Yeah, I know my normal work flow back home, and I have my real computer. I'm down in Florida right now, and all I have down here is an iPad, and it's driving me crazy. But my normal work flow back home is between I go into Photoshop, Lightroom, and then I've been using the Nick suite. And that's a fairly decent suite, but I mean, it doesn't look as good as this. But
yeah, Nick is limited because you got those little circles and you can work in zones, but
yeah.
You can't do this. I looked at Nick and I really gave it a try. I said, no, this is not. It's not the one.
Yeah, it's limited. It's limited.
I know DxO bought them, and I'm going to download their trial for the DxO Pro, which is supposed to kill Lightroom for its ability. I've been watching video after video after video, and I'm actually going to download it tonight and give it a try. I have their DxO Prime, which takes care of noise and sharpens raw files like you can't believe. And once they came out with the DxO 2, which was my Fuji was included in it, I snapped it up instantly. So
yeah,
all my keepers get run through that, all of them. There's things that, and let me go back to Lightroom and I'll show a few samples here. Not everybody got to see the slideshow, but hang on, let me switch screen. This is a pain. I got to talk to these people that go to meeting. I've never had to do this before, but really, I mean, this is Italy. I mean, look what you can do with the subtle dodge and burn here. I'll show you the raw file, and it's like, are you kidding me? This was the raw file.
Oh yeah,
and handheld, because Italy is crazy about bringing tripods in. So you have to do what you have to do, and I was exposing for the window, because the window light was my key, and I knew I could open this guy up with the shadow. So I honed in on this and let the reflection, all that rim light that's on top of this person sitting there. It's crazy what you can do with this. I think this particular photo of the place out there in the Tetons.
I was looking at that when you had your screen up. I got very my image of that is probably if you cut this tree off on the left hand side, 3 or 4 steps to the right, I'm in the same spot. most people walk right by this, and I said, "Holy crap! Look at this!" I know.
And I got lucky with the clouds, and my goodness, and here's the final on this TIFF file. I shot this in Savannah out in the back alley. It had a little bit of water rain the night before, and look what you could do from the original. Um, you, you can't do this in Lightroom. And I mean, seriously, look what I did out in Utah. Um,
Yeah, that's nice.
yeah, I mean, everybody that's been to Capitol Reef knows this place,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's where I started. And as I love this kind of sky because I know what it's going to do for me, and it instantly tells me black and white. Um, this doesn't work. It works, but it doesn't work as well as black and white. So this is the tool. It really, really, honestly is. I had never shot birds in my entire life, ever, ever, ever. I'm not a birder, but I
Yeah.
went down to Merritt Island last year. I said, let me give it a try, and this is the final.
It grows
With-
on you. It grows.
with-
I never shot birds until we started coming down here to Florida for the winter, and I've been doing a lot of birds in the last couple of years. But
Yeah, and I'm working on a project where I'm photographing some women, 50 strong women, and
Mhm.
this was my first one. And over at the Gardner Museum in Boston, the light just is beautiful there. I mean, she's a cute kid, but I did the same for this woman, and that's the raw file. But the TIFF file, well, that's the TIFF file. Sorry. Then I bought an underwater camera housing, Hampton Beach, and this is fun. This is a blast.
Yeah.
And Lorraine, that's on board here now, she knows this place. I've taken her shooting here a few times. She got up late this morning and missed out on this, but sorry, Lorraine. She got up late. I'm sorry. and this one, really nobody has access. This is the Deer Island, where they convert poop to fertilizer.
Yeah.
And I know the guy inside and the director, and he lets me do this and trade for pictures. So this is just fun.
Yeah. I'll have to look into those programs.
Yeah, it's crazy good. This is a good example. This was down in the Smoky Mountains. We went down there this year. I just had perfect conditions and got so lucky, and that's the final.
Nice.
With this program. It's just not overdone, and it's just a slow shutter speed.
TK8.
It allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. This particular one, I turned into black and white, but I was using a pen tool, to get my gradients in the areas that I wanted the gradients. So it didn't hit here; it hit right here where I wanted my gradients. So I got the pen tool out.
Yeah.
And just selected it, made a selection, saved it, and there's my gradients. So it's a good combination of both tools. I can't say enough about it. It's just wonderful. Even for night photography, if you will. Here's downtown Boston at the seaport at night. Oh, just a wonderful place to go shooting. Now, Bob, where are you located?
Right now we're down in Inglewood, Florida, but normally in the summertime we're back up in Wakefield, Rhode Island. Because I've been to several of your workshops with you.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know where you were right now. I know you head for the south.
Right. We're in Inglewood, Florida, right now on the West Coast.
Yeah.
We're just below Venice.
Yeah. Oh, I know where that is. My wife lived in Venice for a period where her dad had a roller skating rink.
Oh, yeah?
Clyde Butcher lives there. You know Clyde,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
I haven't met him. I've been up and he did a studio darkroom tour last year.
Yeah. This was right down the street from his studio.
Yeah.
I went to visit it.
The one down in the Everglades.
Yeah, he's the new Ansel, and it showed. His price point is several grand.
Oh, his stuff is expensive. His stuff is very expensive.
And I taught Lorraine this little technique this year. I got her actually in the water with me in the tripod, and this is so easy. People think this is complicated. This is so easy. You just need to get the rhythm of the wave and keep shooting, and you're going to get 10 out of 100, 20 out of 100. But if you can get the rhythm,
just panning with the water.
Yeah, and this time I brought the tripod in because I didn't want to do it by hand. I'm up to my beyond my knees, and I was getting cool, but right there. And I protected my camera. I was
Yeah.
high enough. I protected it, and that's why I bought the housing.
Yeah.
So now I can actually get down even lower and get different. But this is what you can
I'm
do.
gonna
with this
try
little-
that. I'm
That's
trying
nice.
it this summer.
It's amazingly easy to do. It really is. Just, you get something around a half, 3/4 seconds. It really depends on the wave, how fast they're moving that day. And you just time it and you sweep left to right, right to left as the wave is going by you. And this is the result of what you can do with that.
Nice.
You don't want to go in during hurricane waves, but you go in you get down low right into the wave and it looks like it's bigger. These weren't that big that day, if Lorraine remembers, but we got some nice shots out of there. So I have fun with it. So anybody got any last questions before we end this for today? And I really appreciate you all coming and staying with us. And I'm going to make a recording out of this, and I'll edit out the not so nice stuff, and we'll put it into the newsletter, and we'll put it out for everybody that couldn't make it here today.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks,
All
Joe.
right. All right, and please, Paul, jump in the deep end. I know
Yeah.
you said you haven't been doing this. Just jump into the deep end.
Yeah, I haven't been doing less than a year digital. I've been a photographer for 40 years, but the digital aspect is brand new to me. So it's
Well-
scary, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it. So.
Paula, the only thing I can tell you is manual is the same, whether it's film or it's digital. Manual is the same, and I always leave it on manual when I shoot. I never put it on P or A or S. It's M. I
Yeah,
want
I've
the
been-
decision.
Yeah, I've been
Manual.
trying them. I've been doing the raw too, so that's been
Al-
a lot of fun.
Always raw, always raw,
Mhm.
because you can't do JPEGs like you can do this. It just doesn't work as well. So have some
Well,
fun.
thank you. Yeah,
You know,
thank you.
if I'm ever in your area, just reach out to me. I'll reach out to you. We'll go shoot for a day.
Yeah,
Like I
I'm
come down-
hoping to
we're-
do one of your workshops soon.
Yeah.
So
my workshops, they're my friends, because I go shooting with them off hours too, if they're around. It's not about a business. It's about friendships and sharing the knowledge. This is just fun for me. And Bob's been with me, and Mark's been with me several times.
yeah.
So, and Mel, we just have fun.
awesome.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
good days.
Yeah, we do. So I want to thank you, and I'll record this and I'll get it out in this month's newsletter, and you can review the parts that are pertinent to you and go over it and over and over it, and we'll have some fun.
Good enough.
All
Thank you,
right.
Joe.
Thank you.
Good to talk
Thanks,
to you.
Joe.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, later.
Bye now.